Have you done one of these before?
We did the 12th Street one when we talked about the different options. That's the only one I've done.
Yeah, we'll spend a little bit. Hello, and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host and City Manager Doug Bartosh, and we're here today with Morgan Scott, our Development Services Manager, to kind of give everybody an update on the various projects we have going on in the city. And we really have quite a few. In fact, over the last 5 to 6 years, it is absolutely amazing what we've been able to accomplish in the city. And it was a good time to do it because it kept a lot of our construction, people in business, kept them working, and that's a good thing. It also allowed for good prices because everybody was anxious to get some work, and so the demand was pretty high for jobs, and so we were able to get good prices. A lot of people were concerned that we were still out spending money, but we had capital money set away, and it was a good time to use it both for our community and for the city. However, we still have many projects that we're working on, and I have Morgan here today to kind of update us on some projects that we have going on, and probably two that I think are pretty substantial that people are interested in. One is 12th Street. Yep. And where are we at on finishing 12th Street, and that's that section between Highway 89A and Fur, which really is in bad shape. I mean, it essentially is what do you call that? It's not really even pavement. It's
more of a chip seal on clay. It's not even chip seal on caliche.
Yeah. Yes, so it's not in great shape and in something that's long overdue. So tell us where we're at on that.
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Doug.
You betcha.
12th Street, as everybody knows, it is one of our roads that's in not the best shape, needs to be taken care of. It is, unfortunately, it's built on about 2 feet of clay, which is why it is potholing continuously in places. In fact, you'll notice it's almost every time after it rains. And it's more of a drainage problem. And when we had a soils report come in and a soils engineer come in, that's one of the things they analyzed, that yes, it's built on clay, but another one of the big problems is the drainage. And so that's why the addition of curbs, gutters, storm drains, getting everything else out of there will not only improve the road and keep it in great shape, but another thing we're going to do with the project is we're going to remove that 2 feet of clay, get it out of there, bring in a good solid material so that the new road will last much longer, be in much better shape.
So I assume the clay it doesn't allow the rainwater to soak in, and so consequently it stays on the slurry seal and kind of washes away all the oils and those kind of things. I mean, ideally, I assume that on a street, you want that water to wash off as soon as possible.
Yeah, you want it to get out of there, get gone. And the other problem with clay is it moves. It will dry, it will freeze, thaw, it will constantly, there's something we call pumping. When a road goes over it, and you can actually literally see roads pump and adjust with a vehicle driving over. And that's one of the reasons 12th Street's in such poor shape.
Because asphalt moves then and
Yes.
breaks up. Huh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. And you ask about where we're at. In fact, most of you may have seen a lot of driving on 12th Street recently, or I'm sorry, a lot of construction while driving on 12th Street. And that's actually the reclaimed water line that's going in right now. The rest of the project, both the water line and the road project, should be going to council on May 6th. For the council considering awarding that, the apparent low bidder is a company called Alliance Streetworks. They recently moved to Camp Verde, Arizona, and that's the same contractor that recently rebuilt 10th Street from Maine to Mingus. So they did a good job for us on that job. We're looking forward to working with them on this job. They will likely not start until the reclaimed line is done and out of the way. So that's the work you're seeing being done right now.
And it seems like we've been doing a lot of moving utilities, getting the roadway prepared. So essentially, they pretty much just need to come in and lay down the road. You know, obviously prepare the surface to get it down. And then I guess we're only doing half of the road right now. We still have some right-of-ways to obtain on the north half of this street.
That's correct. In fact, we started in 2009 working with all the utility companies so they could get prepared, get all the utilities moved out of the way for when the road comes in. And this was a much bigger impact on them than normal because we are doing that 2 feet over excavation. They had to not only get the utilities out of the way, what would normally be in the way of laying down asphalt on a base course, but we're going 2 feet below that. So they had to get all the utilities moved out of that way. And that's one of the reasons that 12th Street's taken longer than normal, because they've had to go in there and do all that extra work. And you're correct, this first phase is only going to go from First Street up to the Christian Housing Apartments. So we will do a northern phase, but we have a few more pieces of property and rights of way we have to work with those property owners. And Doug, just so you know, that's in the area where you get a lot of ups and downs in 12th Street. Right. So when we flatten that road out, obviously those neighboring property owners, they're going to be impacted a little bit more, which is why we're working with them a little bit longer.
Right, yeah. And that's certainly understandable. And you know, and I'm glad you explained that, because I think a lot of people are probably going, wow, why is it taking them so long to get this roadway done? And you know, the reason is it was never done appropriately to begin with, and ever since then it's kind of been just a maintenance nightmare to keep that roadway drivable. And so in essence what we're going to do is go in and get it done right. It'll have curbs, sidewalks, bike lanes, and the whole thing, and it'll be flattened out a little bit so we don't have quite a roller coaster on 12th Street.
That's correct.
And I think the other thing to remember, it is a collector street. There is a lot of traffic on that. It's not, even though there are residences along that stretch of 12th Street, it is a collector street, and so people use it to commute back and forth into the city.
Yes.
So it is important that it's in good shape. So we get the council awards the bid on May 6th to the south half, and I imagine they'll probably be starting, within 30 days? I can't imagine that, I think it's Mark Millar and his guys are working on the water line or the reclaim line.
That's correct. They're working on that line, and they should be done with, it would be a good goal to have them done within a month after the council awards it. And once we give the new contractor a notice to proceed, they have 120 days to rebuild the, again, the water line and the rest of the road project. Okay.
You know, and just to give people an idea, I assume a comparison would be the new street between Willard and 89A on Mingus. I assume the new street on 12th Street will look pretty much like that.
That's a 3-lane, so it has a turn lane, but other than that, yes, it will look like that. Or another good comparison would be the new Willard extension.
Okay.
Between Dr. Daniel Bright School or the Verde Village Unit 8 and the Guidance Clinic.
Right.
That's something that the city and a private entity came in and rebuilt a few years ago, and it'll look very similar to that. 6-foot sidewalks both sides of the road. You mentioned curb, gutter, bike lanes.
The whole thing.
Yes.
You know, and I think a lot of times people don't understand the other really struggle with this has been acquiring the right-of-way or the easements we needed. I mean, we really didn't have sufficient space to put in a new roadway there, and so we had to work with how many property owners to...
Yep, 39 different property owners, 2 publicly owned corporations, Wells Fargo and AutoZone, as well as many other private entities that were all being impacted by that new road.
Right.
And that is a good point. 12th Street is being used as a collector street, even though we only have 50 feet of right-of-way. Yeah. A city standard would ask for 80 feet of right-of-way for a collector street, so we can put all those improvements. Again, the 6-foot sidewalks, both sides of the road, curb, gutter, bike lanes, all that takes up a lot of space, but we're trying to cram that down into 50 feet. And actually, we were able to get away without widening the right-of-way for this project. We did need to ask for a little bit of right-of-way at some corners, but other than that, we didn't buy much right-of-way with this project.
So our thanks to all the citizens who cooperated with us and helped us move this project along, and hopefully we're still hopeful that by this year we'll be able to get this project done, I assume.
Absolutely. That is our goal. Without a doubt, the south half, or the south portion, I guess it's a little more than half, it's probably about 2/3 of the road, that will be done this year.
Right.
The north half, or northern portion, unfortunately we don't know when it'll be done yet, but the goal is to be done this year. And
again, we're not necessarily controlling the timeline on that one in terms of acquiring the right-of-ways we need to make this happen. I think the other thing that's important is obviously we're trying to make this street safer and more usable for the public, and yet we've also got to be sensitive to the fact that we do have people with homes on that street, and we don't want to take away from their quality of life as well. So
yes, important.
Well, that's a big project, and I know we've been working on it for several years, and so I think everybody will be excited when that one is finally completed. The next, we might as well stay with roadway projects. What's on the horizon for roadway projects?
Well, the next one is the one I'm actually very excited. I know a lot of people are really excited about 12th Street, but the next one is Mingus Avenue, and the reason I'm so excited about it, Mingus Avenue is actually our most heavily traveled city street. Obviously, the highway and the state highway are our busiest roads in town, but Mingus Avenue is pushing well over 10,000 trips a day, and it's also not in the best of shape. Doug, you'll remember that in fact, within the last year, the city completed a project from 89A near the Maverick and the new Tractor Supply store to the middle school. That road was recently constructed, and that road was also very similar to 12th Street. It was a
bad,
poor condition road. And reconstructed that. That road's in great shape now. We get a lot of compliments on that road. Well, the city actually has $850,000 in federal grant money to reconstruct the last portion of Mingus Avenue, which is from Willard Street, again near the middle school, to Main Street down near Circle K, which is also, although not in as poor of a condition, is not in great shape.
Right.
So that will be about a $2 to $3 million project, and again, $850,000 of it is going to be federal money. So we are just now beginning the design process. We're wrapping up all the intergovernment agreements with ADOT for the grant. We are finalizing a proposal with, I believe it's Somas Engineering out of Tucson, and we had to go with a ADOT-approved consultant on that one. Somas has a lot of experience. We're excited about getting them in the area.
Let's go ahead and take our second break, and then come back and join us, and we'll finish up with a couple more projects that are happening in the city.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We need a claim number?
When I started taking care of Mom, I didn't realize the challenge of playing so many roles. But above all, I'm still her daughter.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving. We're here to help.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here with Morgan Scott, who's our Development Services Manager, and we're talking about projects, roadway projects and construction projects, and just trying to update you on what's going on in the city. And so we covered 12th Street and where we're at on that. Mingus is next on the list to get redone between Willard and Main Street. And we're also looking at doing Main Street to 89A, because if you've traveled that at all, you can see it's kind of fallen apart. So what's going on with that one?
Sure, and Doug, that's the portion that was a county and city project. I think it was back in 2003, 4, or 5 in that area. The county and the city got together to build a bridge over Mingus Avenue, and that's one of the only before that was only one bridge in the Upper Verde Valley to get over the Verde River. And that has led to Mingus Avenue being one of the most traveled roads in the city, or I'm sorry, in the whole region, and it parallels 260 all the way out to I-17. So there's 2 ways to get to I-17 from here, and this portion that we're discussing is one of them. Unfortunately, although it was a great joint project, we built a bridge and got that road built, the top surface, what's called the friction course, is coming apart pretty bad, and both the county and city residents have called in to voice their concerns, and so the county and the city are working out a joint agreement right now to resurface that road next year. And rather than rebuild the entire road, what we're probably likely going to do is what's called a mill and fill, in which we'll come in, we'll mill maybe half an inch, inch and a half, some amount, and then we'll come back with an overlay in that area to get a nice smooth surface in there. So again, we're working on those agreements with the county right now.
You know, and that, I've certainly noticed that too. So that'll be a great project. Again, great cooperation between the county and the city to get that done. But obviously, we're going to have some busy road work this summer in the city. You know, the other thing that I'll just mention on that section of roadway, another great joint project between the city and the county was a new trailhead parking area up at the top of the, well, just kind of east of the Cliff Rose area. And people can park in there and then hit the roadway. And I just want to remind people of that, because we still have people parking down where you used to go in there, which really you shouldn't be doing, because you're trespassing on land that you're not allowed to trespass on. So please go a little farther west, park in the new parking area. There's great access, great parking, and that way you can access the trail. So again, great cooperation between the county and city on that. What other roadway projects we have coming up?
Well, that may be it as far as roadway projects, though the one that'll be coming up, it'll be a few years out, which is probably, most people would agree, one of the next projects that we need to look at is 6th Street between 89A and Mingus. And again, that's a few years out. That may be 2 to 3 years out. We're not even beginning the design project to that one yet. Yeah. But that's a few years out.
Yeah, I have heard people bring that up as kind of a concern, and we really don't have great drainage on that road either, do we?
No, we're going to have to seriously look at some storm drains or some other drainage improvements on that road by the time we get there.
Okay, good. Okay, so we do have some construction projects. We have a regional public safety communication center being constructed right now. If you haven't seen it, it's right at the corner of 7th and Aspen. Beautiful building. It's going to be a beautiful operations communications center that so far is going to dispatch for Cottonwood PD, Cottonwood Fire, Verde Valley Ambulance, looks like Clarkdale Fire Department, and we hope many others. We really do hope that it becomes a regional communications center for all our public safety resources, which really makes the most sense. Anything you want to add on that, Morgan?
Our project manager, Scott Mangerpan, he's also the project manager for the rec center, the court rebuilding, the court remodel a few years ago, the utilities department remodel. So he's done a few remodels for us. I really appreciate Scott because he's kind of grabbed all these different projects and learned a lot about them. You know, for instance, the communication center, the details and regulations that go into running that communication center, very, very unique situation as far as, for instance, there's examples of bulletproof glass and other type requirements that Scott had to jump in and learn all these things. So he's done a great job with that. And I think he said that project is pretty close to being on schedule.
On schedule. And again, it's you know, there are standards now related to homeland security, and so the communications center has to meet these particular standards. But compared to what we have currently, which is a little, you know, hole in the wall dispatch center, this is really going to upgrade our public safety services tremendously, and obviously improve service to our community as well as the communities across the Verde Valley. So that's fantastic. I know the other thing we have coming up is the Riverfront Reclamation Plant, which we hope to start probably early, sometime next year, I would think.
Yeah, possibly break ground by the end of this year. We are working with both the contractor and the consultant at the same time. It's a unique situation, which we get to work with both of them in order to cut the cost down. And that's a big part of what we're doing right now. It's what they call design engineering. Now that they're going back and they kind of know what the plant's going to look like and how it's going to operate, it's, hey, how can we get the best bang for the buck for the city on this project? So that's what they're really working on right now, is how can we save some money on this project, but still hoping to break ground by the end of this year. And again, that will be located at Riverfront Park. There's a soccer field kind of south of Riverfront Drive. You may know where that is, south of the skate park and hockey rink. That soccer field is actually going to remain in place and may even get improved. But to the east side of that soccer field is a vacant parcel. There's some dirt stored there now. That's where the park's going to go. So I know that some citizens concerned, how much is this going to invade into our park? Because that's a wonderful park. I know the citizens are very proud of that park, and they don't want to see it impacted. And we actually see this as a benefit to that park, having all that water. And I think a few years after that plant's built, you won't be able to recognize that park as far as how green it will be and how nice it will be.
And hopefully, I mean, I think the goal is to be able to keep the park green year round, because we'll have the water source to do that now. And you know, in fact, we'll actually need to. I mean, we're going to be processing about 300,000 gallons a day out of that plant, and we need somewhere to put the water. So if it's not in the park, we're hoping we can water the old cottonwood trees in that area, and possibly even run a line over to Dead Horse State Park and water their areas as well. But very exciting project, and again, you know, people are always concerned about having a wastewater treatment plant in their neighborhood, which is a legitimate concern. Yes. But if you're ever down in the Phoenix area, go by the corner of Hayden Road and I think it's McDonald and Scottsdale. Same thing, wastewater treatment plant right next to their dog park, all their parks, and it backs right up to residential. Yes. And it looks beautiful. You can't tell what it is other than just a large municipal building, and this will be pretty much the same thing. That's correct. With the difference of this will be 100% solar operated, and so what you'll see is a lot of solar panels. Yes. So, and almost every regional park you see in Phoenix, I know people have complained for years, why are we using all that water on our parks in Phoenix? For a long time, Phoenix has been using reclaimed water on those parks. People maybe were not aware of that. I know a lot of people are concerned, you know, how are we going to use reclaimed water, you know, on our ball fields and on our athletic fields. That's a pretty common practice in Phoenix, and that's why they're able to have such green, nice parks in a much drier area than the Verde Valley. Absolutely. And again, I think it's important to tell people too that this is what they call grade A plus reclaimed water. I mean, it's very, very clean. You know, we currently water the fields quite a bit with water that we own out of the river. So not only will we save that river water, we'll be able to keep it in the river, but quite honestly, the water we'll be using will be much cleaner than what we take out of the river. Yes, that's correct. So let's go ahead and take our second break and then come back and join us, and we'll finish up with a couple more projects that are happening in the city.
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're going to be hanging out a little bit more.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here today with Morgan Scott from our Development Services Department, and we're talking projects, trying to update everybody on projects. We just finished talking about the new reclamation plant down at Riverfront Park, and it's important to understand not only did we need that additional capacity down at the, to treat it down at the park to save some transmission lines that were overburdened. But more importantly, we're going to be able to use this reclaimed water where we need it most, in our parks and watering the parks. So it really is a good investment for the city that maybe some people may not see the benefit today, but in the long run, it'll be very beneficial for us to have that down there. So a couple of other projects that I know we've got going on down at Riverfront Park. You want to talk about those a little bit, Morgan?
Sure, Doug. You and I met with members of both the hockey leagues and the Verdi. Make sure I get this correct. The Dirty Verdi Roller Derby. Roller Derby, who are very active in using the hockey rink. And the hockey rink's a great facility. Not many towns, towns of Cottonwood size, especially northern Arizona, have that kind of facility. And it's a great facility. Unfortunately, it had just gone a few years without a lot of maintenance and upkeep. So the city put quite a bit of money into that this year. Repainted, it's not just a paint, it's actually an acrylic surface that went down. Had a local contractor volunteer to do that, so we saved some money on that. We're going to be repainting the boards and kind of stiffening up the boards because, and again, they've just kind of, the sun's beating on them a little bit. So doing that in the hockey rink. Another part in the skate park. The skate park was unfortunately never completely finished. There was actually a very large concrete section, I want to say approximately 20 to 30 feet wide, just missing out of the section that we should be rebuilding this year. In fact, I think the designs of that are nearly complete. We may even be installing a sidewalk. One of the things that the hockey and the skate park people said they really like to have is access to restrooms. Well, in order to build restrooms over there, it would be very, very expensive. However, to build a sidewalk from the skate park area to the softball hub restrooms is much, much less expensive, and it allows the skaters to get there, without removing all their gear and all their skates and everything. Right. So that's something we could be moving forward with in the next year or so.
Yeah, and I think that's really an important project, and you bring up a good point. I mean, a city this size to have even a kind of a skate park is unusual, let alone have a hockey rink, inline hockey rink as well. And, fortunately our roller derby women can use that for their competitions as well, which is really exciting to watch. But yeah, this has been a great partnership project between the city and those who are actually using the facility down there. And we really hope to build that into more of kind of a tourist draw. If you haven't been down there to watch some of the roller hockey matches, or in particular the roller derby matches, they're great. They're a lot of fun to watch, and they usually draw pretty good. Yeah. So this is a great project. We're also putting up some fencing, both around the skate park and the roller rink. So hopefully you'll see some real improvements with that down there as well. So I know another project that we've got going is, we've redone just about, either redone or replaced just about every building that provides city services. The one building that I think hasn't gotten the attention it really deserves is a civic center, and we're now going to undertake that and really get that back in shape.
Yep. And it's been kind of, not unfortunate, but it's not the most heavily used city building, which is one of the reasons I think it kind of took a back burner, but it is one of the most recognized city buildings. It's when you come right into Old Town. It's almost one of Cottonwood's landmarks. In fact, I think it was built in the 30s with WPA money, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. 1939.
1939, is that correct? Beautiful, beautiful building. One of the difficulties in remodeling that is the possibility of, okay, do we need to bring it up to ADA codes? Do we need to bring it up to other, more modern codes? And we keep running into obstacles as we do that. But we are finally getting some money aside to revamp that building. And in addition to revamping that building is also installing a new parking lot around it, which, as Doug, I'm sure as you've seen, that parking lot's not in the best shape.
No, definitely. And the problem is we don't have real good ADA access.
Yes.
Handicap access, so.
Yep. And that new parking lot would not only give handicap access to the building, but also to the street. So it would be handicap access for other businesses on that south end of Main Street, which Old Town's always going to be lacking for parking because we just, it wasn't planned for in the 20s when those subdivisions were designed. So that'll be a good addition for not only more parking, but more handicap parking.
And I think this has been a great team effort too, in terms of identifying what needs to be done, working with the community. Even one of our council members, Tim Alinsky, I've seen him in there this week, retiling the entryway. Everybody loves this building, and we really want to get it back into pristine shape. So, it really is kind of that point of pride for the city to have that building down there. And as Morgan indicated, we are going to put in a new parking area that not only will serve the Civic Center, but it will also serve the new brew pub that is going in the old recreation building.
Yep.
So.
And Doug, I know you're familiar with that project, but for anybody else who's not, the city's old rec center, which I think the rec center operated out of there for probably longer than either Doug or I have been with the city. It's been quite a while. And with the new recreation center, the city staff and rec center moved up to the 6th Street site, leaving that building vacant. And the city considered, what do we want to do with it? Ultimately, I think council decided, hey, maybe we should move forward with selling that. And the was it an RFQ, a request for qualification process?
Yeah, it was a request for proposals, and I think there had been actually some discussion among city staff about just tearing that building down because the structural integrity of it was in question, and but we had people who were interested in it. Again, that had largely to do with just the the revitalization of Old Town and the interest in. From private businesses of coming in and doing business there. So fortunately we have somebody who said, hey, we'd love to have that building. We'll put the money into it to fix it. They're going to be working very closely with our Historic Preservation Commission and the council to make sure that it maintains its historical integrity. And we'll have another thriving business in Old Town. So, that's a win-win for everybody.
Yes. And Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but, the potential of, rebuilding that parking lot with funds that would generate from selling that building, that's another win on top of that. Yes.
Yeah. We'll sell the building. The money we get from the building will go into, completing more of a parking area. Not only for the Civic Center, the brew pub, but also for the events we have there during the summer, Farmers Market. We have our Harvest Festival back there. And in fact, that's probably going to be one of our next projects, is looking at trying to really create a town square where we currently have a ball field that nobody uses anymore other than for special events. And so we want to make it more conducive for special events.
And that'll be a really neat feature, very similar to the Prescott Town Square, or towns all over the country have their own town square.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've hit the major ones, and we probably need to have you back on a regular basis just to give us updates on the various projects going on in town. But we're working to try and make your town as attractive, as useful as we possibly can, and at the same time keep people working, particularly our local contractors. So thanks for joining us today. Come back and join us again soon. Take care.